understanding that there was a real fundamentally strong business at the core of whatever public market story we might eventually tell. And moreover, I just knew that at the beginning of Tantalus Labs, I would have to spend 70% or so of my time as the CEO focused on public markets and corporate finance related activity. And I really love building stuff and like building this team and watching them build this company and helping them build this company has been the greatest joy of my professional life. Like, it's such an exciting thing to be able to be an operator's CEO and someone who gets to spend, 10 to 15 hours of their day, I don't mind saying, figuring out how to solve these problems and build at the core of it a great agricultural business that's cultivating quality product that then allows us to have that baseline for the other aspirations to grow our business in a more professional context.
See, and I really love this about you. I mean, I've worked with LPs. I was the sales and marketing manager at one of them. And, what I found really interesting in my experience meeting with all of the LPs, because part of my job was trying to get them to test with us, was that there were many who didn't know a lot about the plant. They came from mining, they came from forestry, they came from other backgrounds, but didn't necessarily, there've been many who were like, oh God, I wouldn't smoke it for the life of me. And they didn't actually know a lot about the plant. And so what inspires me and really excites me about you and what you're doing at Tantalus is that it's not just about the pomp and circ of the business, but there's also this, why we're in the business, and it's back to the plants. And, you yourself are often posting on social of your experiences as a consumer, as well as somebody who's a producer. And so it's that transparency that I think creates trust within the community, especially at a time when we're burgeoning a new industry where there's been a lot of change in a very short period of time, and it's only going to iterate accordingly. So what year exactly would you say that Tantalus was founded? Like, when did the idea kind of permeate within you to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do with my life?
Yeah, so I was working in a more sort of corporate work environment in my mid-20s. I was 26 when I founded Tantalus Labs, which was 7 years ago, actually, this month. So April of 2012 was when the idea really started to move from concept into reality in its own momentum. And that was about a 120 person company and a very kind of rigid structure. They all came from MBA backgrounds and more sort of corporate professional experiences. And I guess I just wasn't that happy there. And our relationship ended. And I realized, what do I want to do with my time on this planet? Do I want to work for somebody else, build their thing? Do I want to gain experience in a certain region? And I thought, cannabis, the notion of the MMPR had just sort of started to formulate. It was a year before the original applications came through. And I knew that as a newcomer into this business, I was going to have to pay homage to a deep cultural history and, create something that British Columbians could be proud of. If that was what I was going to do, and this was before all the stock market hype and before we knew that there was going to be sort of overnight successes without a whole lot of substance to them, there was going to need to be a deep commitment. And I was at a cool part of my life where I was inspired and smart and had some resources, but didn't have a really clear direction. And so I think I just fell in love with the notion of being able to write a textbook. I was like, look, I can get some really cool academics behind this. I can get some cool agricultural minds. I had faith at that point that we would find great cannabis minds, which we have, and we've attracted such amazing talent, from that legacy marketplace, people who really deeply care about iterating towards a brighter future, even for British Columbian genetics, which today are already amazing. And that, I think, is what really attracted me most to it, is that there was no rules. There was no box. We had to build the box and then break it and then build it again. And that's what we've been doing for the last 7 years. And it's an amazing journey. The team building part is definitely my favorite aspect.
It's so amazing to build a team. It's interesting because you had mentioned to me just before we started that I actually went to school with your brother. And back in the day when I was doing that work, there was a textbook that came my way from a psychology class called Please Understand Me. And it's that book that's helped me so much in my career of building teams, because it really kind of outlined your A personality, your B personality, and all your different personalities, and how to stack a team based on a psychological profile. You don't want to have a team all full of A personalities. You need to kind of stack it accordingly. And so I find that's probably one of the most exciting things that I love of working with I come from film originally. So every new project or new kind of film that we're doing or every new theater piece that we're doing, it's always, I look at it as a new startup, a new company, a new kind of project that we're putting together, and you have to stack that team accordingly. And so even back in the day, I would be like, that could be the most talented person ever, but do I really want to spend all this time with them? They're kind of a jerk. Like maybe I need to take less talent, but more personality to get through my day. And it's kind of really fascinating to understand people, to figure out what makes them tick, what their passion is, and how to bring them together to work in a really proactive way as a team. Not all people are meant to be a part of a team. And so it's really interesting to see how to stack people accordingly. So I'm just really curious as we chat, where did the name Tantalus come from?
A question that I get frequently enough. So Tantalus, I love telling this story. Tantalus is the name of a mountain range in between Squamish and Whistler. It's been the outdoor venue of many awesome adventures. It's the backdrop to the Tip of the House Sound. So you can have ocean fun, you can have mountain fun. There's downhill mountain biking, backcountry skiing, hiking, all kinds of good stuff happens in the Tantalus mountain range. And you can actually see it from English Bay on a really clear day. You can just sort of look over the back of Black Mountain at Cypress and see the Tantalus Range peeking out. Gorgeous kind of craggy paleoglaciated peaks that really represented British Columbia in my mind. And so when we think of those outdoor experiences, we always kind of came back to this reprieve that you get from your daily monotony or the white noise in your life. And that was really, I think, intuitively aligned with what we want to deliver in terms of cannabis experiences, and whether that be a reprieve from a medical condition that is, making you suffer, or it's just a reprieve that you're getting on a Friday afternoon with your friends. We think that cannabis can make so much good in people's lives, and when used responsibly, can be such an impactful thing. I mean, I know that in my life, I was actually just in Europe for a week and didn't have access to cannabis, and it was nice to get a little break, but I recognize, we're so lucky to have this in our lives and to have such good quality product in our lives in this province. And so Tantalus is kind of that breath of fresh air for us. And that's really the origin story of the name. It's also a Greek mythology about a guy who gets stuck in a knee-deep water and he can't reach this really awesome, tasty fruit. And a lot of people have said, why did you name it after this Greek tragedy? I said, just to tantalize you.
Yeah, there you go. Something to look forward to, right? Always iterating for something better. And so you speak to that kind of experience and the cannabis experience. And I really love to see what you're doing in the community. You're doing a lot of different community engagements. You've got Emma doing wonderful things. I had the good fortune to kind of work with your team to do a company kind of like an engagement to get the word out there about topicals. And so you have something new coming up for 420 with trichomes and some crazy things happening. So talk to me about this. How and why do you want to create more of these kind of installations and community engagements?
So in fairness, this is all the brainchild of our highly talented community manager, Carly Fallman. She was an addition to our team about 6 months ago as we decided that, there's all these weird marketing spends going on. We've never been a huge fan of kind of yelling from the rooftops with loud megaphones that we pay a lot of marketing dollars for. We just sort of think that, quality product drives its own conversations, and that is something that needs to happen, with a reputation that gets built over time. So we're okay to play a slower marketing strategy, but Carly came on and really showed me the light and showed our creative director that the ability to actually interact with people in spaces and let them see and feel the brand and see and feel the brand's collaborators is going to be just such an interesting traction opportunity. And we get to actually see and meet the people who care about what it is that we do or what it is that our collaborators do. And I'm so glad that we've taken that tack. I think the world of brand is changing really rapidly, which is why I make a point of surrounding myself with people that are thinking about it in new ways. And I'm so lucky to have this team that get to educate me, right? Like I'm learning so much from the bright minds in our camp. And I think the community stuff also, like when it comes to Planet Trichome, which is the event that we're having at the planetarium on the 18th, just before the 420 weekend, like we like to party. We like to listen to music. We like to have fun with people. We like to dance. And so let's do this. Let's be authentic as a company and say, yeah, this is the culture that we came from. I've been a starry-eyed raver child since I was a teenager. So, let's be honest and have a good time with people that care about cannabis.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's really important that you're walking the walk as well as talking the talk. And just from my own experience doing that infusion workshop and teaching people how to infuse your gorgeous CBD cannatonic strain into a coconut oil, I'm still getting emails and I'm still having people coming back to learn more. And I think it was such a wonderful experience to have that hands-on dialogue with 30 plus people. And so I'm curious if you're looking to be expanding more of these kind of pop-up social engagement experiences in other cities and provinces as well. Is that where you're hoping to grow to, or are you just going to stay local for now?
So Tantalus Labs is available in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and we're sort of excited to follow a strategy towards nationwide distribution within this calendar year, because a lot of people want BC Bud and a lot of people want good quality cannabis. I think that the thing about laying out a local footprint, it's easy for us in Vancouver because we've got a lot of friends in this community and, we grew up here. So these are our people. And as a result, it's also easy to tailor the nature of events. Like, learning from you about infusions was such a cool privilege. And I think really captivates the minds of Vancouverites because there's a great DIY culture. There's a great organic food culture. There's a great kind of, desire to do artisanal handcrafted stuff. And that knowledge base that you shared inspired a lot of people, not least of all myself. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's you're good at what you do. That's cool. Anybody who doesn't, quite have the confidence behind doing their own home oil extractions and also cooking into especially topicals and a variety of other great food additives, check out Siobhan. She's killing it. You're missing out if you're not. So shameless plug to you. Yeah. But if we were to look to do that, then in Calgary or in Toronto or in Montreal, we would say, look, who are our local advocates that already exist there today, and how can we empower them to tell their stories? Like, I love Toronto. Whenever I go, I have so many great friends that want to show me what's cool in food, want to show me what's cool with the city. And so I'm sort of a student of Toronto instead of trying to go there and be like, this is who this is, or this is who we think it is. So that's the nature of community engagement, I think, is you've got to tailor yourself and your message to a community. Now, luckily, there's a lot of communities that gravitate towards exotic cannabis and British Columbian cannabis. And so I think we're going to find some pretty interesting crossover. And I think everyone's going to be excited about what Tantalus Labs has on its community slate, over the next 18 months.
I'm curious to ask in regards to, you've talked about, your hope for more of a national strategy. Are you also looking from a global perspective of like tapping into other markets when the time is right?
So really interesting question, and one that I might have a bit of a contrarian view on. I think that the global market for cannabis isn't really there. I think it's definitely not there in the way that large LP pitch decks would have you believe it's there. And I think that it will obviously evolve over time, and we're going to see a globalization of cannabis, hopefully sooner rather than later. Maybe it's a 20-year trajectory, maybe it's a 10-year trajectory, but more and more educated economies seem to be moving towards more evidence-based policy on cannabis, which I think is awesome. But I think it's also going to take a lot of time. And the thing about Tantalus Labs is we've never really been super thirsty to be a first mover. Maybe in greenhouse cultivation, we were an early mover, but we didn't let other people prove it out. That when it comes to being the first publicly listed company, or the first company to raise a $50 million round, or the first company to be a seller in Europe, we have to recognize that today the European market is less than a couple hundred kilos a quarter. So because we cultivate cannabis that's differentiated on quality, and our user base is validating that more and more, that our differentiation on quality is really the core of any brand advantage that we might have. We're gonna kind of let that market shape up a bit. And when there is an import economy for export BC cannabis, just the same way there is for export Californian wine or export grappa from Italy, we will be there and ready to deliver for the high expectations of those customers that have heard about BC Bud, but they've never gotten a chance to touch and feel it. I think that that's probably a 5-year game plan for us. And when the right opportunities come around, we'll be there.
I think that's fantastic. I'm always looking to Israel to see what's happening from a research and development point of view. It always seems they're quite ahead, especially from a topical perspective. And so at this point in time, we know Tantalus to be the producer of some really beautiful quality flower. And what are you looking to have for offerings in the future?
I'm glad you asked. So our flower offerings will continue to evolve. We've really just spooled up our genetics engine, and Tantalus Labs is very interested in exotic phenotypes of interesting seed runs. We're doing our own breeding. Luckily, the greatest cannabis minds in our company